Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's eClaims webinar. We ask you to please keep your phone lines muted as we will be using the chat feature to receive your questions today. Please enter your questions throughout the presentation in the chat box located on the right side of your screen. Use the drop-down to send your questions to the panelists. You can also hover over the WebEx tab at the top of your screen and click on Chat. We will answer as many of your questions as we can, but if you have any questions that we don't get to today or think of something after the session ends, we will be providing you with resources at the end of the presentation. Today we will be covering 3.1 news and 3.1 changelog updates. We also will take questions at the end of the webinar. First, we will review eClaims recent news since October. On December 1st, eClaims posted a revised FAQ for periodic reports and when they are due. We ask that you please take a few moments to go to the board's website to review this FAQ. The table that was previously shown has been removed from the FAQ. You may recall at one of our last webinars we did speak about this. On December 8th, we posted a job aid for the web data entry. This will be useful for trading partners who currently use or will be using the web data entry. We also posted an update to the implementation guide for 3.1, section 3.6.1, regarding the form zip file and the PDF naming conventions. Those were both updated. On December 8th, the November webinar recording and slide deck were posted on the board's eClaims page. Also in recent news, the chart of DNs triggered by an O2 has been revised. On the FROI, the jurisdiction claim number and the number of days worked per week were both changed from K to H. On the SHROI, the number of days worked per week was revised from K to H. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mike Hunter, who is going to review the eClaims topics.
Thank you, Patty. We just wanted to give everyone a reminder regarding next month and the go live for release 3.1. Onboarding, the testing continues through Friday, January 7th, 2022. Trading partners who use the SFTP flat file submission, you have to complete your testing no later than January 7th. The production date for all trading partners for 3.1 is Monday, January 24th. This is regardless of whether you've completed the onboarding process, you will be placed into production. So we do highly encourage any trading partner who submits through flat file and did not successfully pass onboarding to use the eClaims web data entry application to submit their production transactions, as that will give you a 100% acceptance rate. For anyone using a vendor, just as a reminder, if your vendor will be testing directly with us, so we ask that you follow up with your vendor if there's any concerns about whether they have passed our 3.1 EDI testing. You do not have to test directly with the board though. Another important point is that you will be held to the ongoing monitoring requirements that are listed in section 3.9 of the 3.1 implementation guide and subject to penalties imposed by the board. Some key dates and times to keep in mind for the month of January. The release 3.0 flat file submissions, those can be submitted through 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, January 20th. Any 3.0 flat file submitted by 6 p.m. on that Thursday will be processed by the board. Web data entry, that will be available until 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, January 21st. If you have any critical transactions and you have access to web data entry, you'll be able to submit those on that Friday right up until 5 p.m. Our eCase system will be available until 5 p.m. Eastern Time on that Friday as well. It'll then be down for the weekend. And release 3.1 will go live on Monday, January 24th. We are expecting our systems to be back up by 7 a.m. on that Monday morning, and you'll be able to start uploading the release 3.1 flat files Monday morning. We wanted to cover part of body again, since it is an important topic and a big change in release 3.1. For those familiar with 3.0, you'll know that only part of body is reported under one time. So if you have an arm that's injured and a leg that's injured, you can only report the arm. And we don't get the left or right or bilateral sides of body. So for 3.1, you're now going to be able to report up to 10 parts of body and include the side of body that was injured if it's a body part such as an arm that could have a left or right side of body. The other important thing with 3.1 and now having this expanded information is that in accordance with section 300.371C, a completed report as defined in section 322 must be filed with the board to indicate the claim's been accepted if the claim is not controverted. Where this becomes important in 3.1 is for those that have reviewed the DN reporting specifics document. And if you have not, we do encourage you to visit the website and review this document. Under DN 74 claim type code and DN 75 agreement to compensate code on the DN reporting document, acceptance is based on the data accident. And DN 36 part of body is listed on the FROI. That will be considered the accepted body parts for the claim once that acceptance has been designated based on DN 75. We also use part of body for different things here at the board. So a couple key things to remember: population restriction must be greater than 0. All this is saying is that if it's a FROI other than the O1 or AQ, we expect you to report at least one part of body to the board. For business uses, for those familiar with eCase, we have a FROI tab in there. Within the latest values tab, all of the body parts that you report will be visible to you and any other eCase user. Within the medical portal, we display in the case search result for providers both the ANCR information as well as the eClaims information for body parts reported through eClaims. Part of body injured code DN36, that is the same data element number as 3.0 on the FROI. You'll see on the screen the part of body injured codes that require location codes. And what that means is these are the codes that are going to require that you report left, right, or bilateral to the board. So for example, you don't see skull on this list. So if the claimant had injured their skull, we wouldn't require left, right, or bilateral to be reported. For DN 36 part of body injury code, there are several population restrictions both on that as well as a number of body parts and some of the other data elements related to part of body. Under population restrictions, you cannot delete the last instance of the part of body injury code as is mandatory as part of the claim. What this means is just that we're enforcing a minimum of one part of body. So if you're trying to delete the part of body, you have to at least leave one on that related to that last accepted FROI. For B, if DN 420 number of body parts is not 10, then the part of body injured code cannot be multiple head injury, multiple neck injury, multiple upper extremities, multiple trunk, lower extremities, or multiple body parts, since you need to submit as many specific parts of body as possible before using them. What that means is since you're allowed 10 parts of body, If you were only reporting 5, we would not allow you to use one of the multiple codes. However, if you were reporting 10, you could use multiple of these codes, such as 40 and 50, as long as the total parts of body reported are 10. Under C, for part of body injured code, cannot be duplicated in the transaction. All this means is that you use bilateral if you happen to injure a left and right hand, for example. The same applies for fingers and toes as well. We would expect bilateral if you're reporting the same part of body and the same finger or toe. For D, DN36 part of body injured code can be insufficient info to properly identify, code 65, only when you're reporting a claim type code and notification only. The reason for that is, if you're accepting a claim, we'd expect that the claim administrator would know the injury sites that they are accepting. And the last population restriction on this screen is DN36. 99 whole body can only be sent if DN57 employee date of death is not null. What this means is that if you're reporting date of death and it's present, you are allowed to use 99 whole body for that death case. Several other population restrictions on some of the number counters. DN420 for the part of body, number of body part injured. The population restriction just says that if it's an MTC, maintenance type code of 00, 04, AU, or UR, or an 02, where an AQ is accepted in the past with number of part of body injured greater than 0, then we'd expect the number of part of body injured to not be 0. What this means in business terms is if you've reported it previously, we would not expect you to just take that off and have 0 parts of body reported to the board. For DN421, part of body injured location code, this is the other important part of the 3.1 changes. It added part of body and the actual location code, so you can now report bilateral, left, and right. As I'd mentioned earlier, there are several population restrictions. This one is on DN421, part of body injured location code. And this is just letting you know it must be null unless one of the parts of body are those listed on the screen here. This is the same list as the previous slide. What this population restriction is saying, though, is that if it's a skull, for example, we would not expect part of body location code to be populated. If you reported the hip, we would expect either left, right, or bilateral. The other change related to part of body for 3.1 was that now you can report the actual fingers and toes location code. What was added to the standard was index finger first toe, the 1. Code 2 is middle finger second toe. 3 is ring finger or third toe. And 4 is little finger or little toe. The population restrictions related to these are DN 422 with an 064 error. Part of body must be null unless DN 36 is 36 fingers other than thumb and or 57 toes. So this is just letting you know that if you report, again, to use the skull as an example, you cannot populate the finger toe location code for that part of body since it wouldn't apply. You can only use those for 36, which is telling us it's a finger, or thumb, other than thumb, or 57, the toes. DM422, part of body injured fingers toe location code, cannot be duplicated in the transaction for the same value of part of body injured code. An example of that, just like we'd used for the arm and hand earlier, is ring finger for fingers other than thumb should not be listed more than once in the transaction. So if you're reporting a ring finger and the claimant has injured both of their ring fingers, we would expect bilateral. So this is just letting you know that you can't report a left ring finger and right ring finger. And lastly, what we wanted to cover, as Patty mentioned in the recent news, we have updated the web data entry resource, the job aid that is posted out on the website. You will find it currently under the 3.1 implementation guide section. Eventually, we will be moving it over to the web data entry section and posting a copy of it within the 3.1 web data entry prior to go live. For now, you can locate it though on the implementation guide page on our website. Any registered organizations or users that use web data entry when submitting the 4A Troy, we do highly encourage you to go out and look at the updated document. It does contain new information related to 3.1 and some screenshots related to 3.1 changes that you may find helpful. You can use this resource document ultimately for information on entering a transaction, how to read errors on those rejected transactions. We included a little section on the O2 change transactions, as well as how to read some of those errors, which will be a little bit different than what you're used to in the past. What happens when a transaction is accepted, and we also included some tips and information regarding the timeouts related to web data entry as well. Again, you can find that out on the 3.1 implementation guide section.
Before we conclude today's presentation, I want to make sure you're aware of the methods to stay informed on eClaims news and upcoming engagement opportunities. You can visit the eClaims website at wcb.ny.gov to stay up to date on eClaims news. You can also sign up to receive news straight to your inbox. This is how we will be communicating future engagement opportunities throughout the course of the BIS project. Visit the eClaims site and select WCB notifications within the eClaims overview section. Questions, comments, and feedback on the eClaims EDI 3.1 upgrade can be emailed to eclaims31@wcb.ny.gov. Questions regarding existing eClaims EDI 3.0 should continue to be sent to eclaims@wcb.ny.gov. You can also follow the board on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. A recording of this webinar is going to be placed on our YouTube and eClaims website, as well as FAQ spawned from the questions being asked during this webinar series. So keep an eye out for these resources, as well as a follow-up email and survey. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time today.